Good evening. When we last gathered for this important annual update, nearly 700 community members attended in person at our beautiful Performing Arts and Event Center. Now, 1 year later, few could have predicted the extraordinary circumstances which followed and changed all of our lives in unimaginable ways. We have seen lives lost on such a staggering rate. It's truly difficult to comprehend the magnitude of losing 500,000 Americans in a single year to an invisible adversary. This devastation is not on some far-off shore. It's in farmlands and cities, beaches, mountain villages, and everywhere in between. We have seen the devastating impact of the novel coronavirus. Here locally, we've lost 98 of our residents, our neighbors, to this awful virus. Before I update you on Federal Way's response to COVID-19, or share with you where our community is headed in the months and years to come, let us bow our heads in a moment of silent reflection for those souls who have left us all too soon. Thank you. It has been said one does not judge friendship or character when times are good, but rather when times are difficult. In the face of tragedy and hardship, we have seen our community come together and define the character of our city for years to come. The story of our response to COVID-19 began long before the pandemic struck. There are times in life when one is faced with a truly consequential decision. As your mayor, I make governing decisions every day, but this one was different. In 2008, our city joined with 6 other South King County cities to build the SCORE jail to house misdemeanor inmates. However, jail costs climbed astronomically between 2012 and 2018, and they skyrocketed by nearly $4 million a year. SCORE was literally breaking our budget. Though we were co-owners of the facility, I knew we could no longer bear the burden of these rising costs. Looking at the possibility of diminishing services for our residents, staff layoffs, or increasing taxes, I presented the proposition of withdrawing from the SCORE jail to my policy partners on the City Council. Presenting what I believe to be a sound and logical financial case, arguing the city would save an estimated $2 million annually, your council agreed, and Federal Way officially left SCORE in early 2020. 1 year later, I'm proud to report we have realized a total savings of $4 million in just 1 year. Now, as significant as the SCORE decision was, sound fiscal management did not begin with withdrawing from the regional jail. As I have updated you before, we made the policy decision to fully implement an equal application of the utility tax on water and sewer services. Our previous relationship with providers involved franchise agreements and fees. Neighboring municipalities did not operate on this type of agreement, and neither should we. This important decision added a much-needed $1 million annually to our city budget. These 2 decisions alone added $5 million to our budget. Now, if those trends continue, it would mean a difference of $10 million in the biennium. Our finance department is led by an internationally recognized finance director, Ade Erewula. We like to call him the professor. His fiscal management of a $200 million biennial budget serves our community well, and I thank him and his entire team for their service to Federal Way. To be frank, without those 2 policy decisions, the impact of COVID-19 on city services would have been crushing. At a time when cities across our region were facing a reduction in services and staffing cuts, Federal Way was able to add important service positions, like the 2 litter control positions and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coordinator. We were able to balance our budget with no impact to services or deep staff cuts when our community needed the assistance the most. I would like to thank our City Council for their work and partnership. You know, I will never forget sitting in my office watching Governor Jay Inslee issue the first shutdown order last spring. Like many parents in our state, my heart sunk when I thought of the impact the shutdown would have on our children and all of our families. My immediate focus was on how local government could help. Now, while the governor's order had the overarching effect of closing the economy down statewide, how municipalities dealt with that impact and responded was very much localized. Working with our Emergency Operations Center, we first issued a state of emergency order, which would allow for greater coordination with the city, with our local partners like South King Fire and Rescue, Lake Haven Utility District, St. Francis Hospital, and our friends at the Federal Way Public Schools. We created the Community Continuity Task Force to coordinate services and share up-to-date information with local nonprofits, healthcare providers, and our schools. My goal was for Federal Way to become a clearinghouse of information to combat the misinformation spread so easily in an uncertain and complex environment. We also created the Business Resiliency Task Force to share information with the Greater Federal Way Chamber of Commerce and our local businesses. We wanted to keep businesses informed of phase information as soon as it was available so they could prepare their staffs and operations for reopening. Now, as the full scale of COVID became apparent and we saw it develop, we saw the immediate impact far and wide. We knew our friends and neighbors could be strained to their breaking points. We all watched and worried as people began to lose their jobs. You know, there's an old quote from President Harry Truman that says, "It's a recession when your neighbor loses his job. It's a depression when you lose yours." We knew we had to do whatever we could to help limit the impacts of the COVID depression on our residents. Like so many in our state, COVID left families unable to provide or pay their bills. The fear of contracting the virus compounded the situation, making it difficult for our neighbors to even know where to go for help. You know, I was raised by a single mother, and we knew hard times as a family. She's gone now, but she taught me and my twin brother that there is dignity in work, and I believe there is dignity in public service to protect people's dignity, to protect families. We rolled up our sleeves and got to work. Coordinating with our task force partners, our economic development department and staff quickly got the word out to local businesses. The Federal Way would help navigate the complex, at times, Paycheck Protection Plan applications and grants for assistance. Using CARES Act funds, I am proud to report, we distributed $4.4 million in vital resources to infuse cash payments to businesses devastated by the COVID-caused closures. Phase one of our distribution saw cash payments go out to across the business community. Now, when the second round of restaurant closures hit in November, we were able to send another $5,000 in grants out to 82 local establishments in 1 week to help stay in business through the holiday season. Due in large part to our sound fiscal management, and before a single dime of CARES Act funds was allocated, I recommended and the City Council passed $83,000 in emergency assistance to ensure food security, rent, and other needs were met as the economy closed down. Working with the Multi-Service Center and other local partners, we were able to help ensure food banks were stocked for our neighbors in need. We distributed PPE and masks as shortages impacted supply. While getting support to businesses was important, the impact of the closure left many unable to pay their rent. Rental assistance was crucial, and we were able to help with $500,000 in direct payments to ensure families unable to pay their rent could. This allowed Federal Way to partner with El Centro de la Raza to serve as a critical lifeline to our neighbors in need. I would like to personally thank Estela Ortega and her outstanding organization for their efficient and equitable distribution of funds, which saw over 80% of rental assistance go to historically marginalized communities. Direct assistance is important, but we have to take an all-of-the-above approach to recovery. At the recommendation of members of our Business Resiliency Task Force, and in coordination with our pivotal partner, the Greater Federal Way Chamber of Commerce, we launched the Shop Local campaign. At shoplocalfedway.com, you can order from your favorite restaurants, retailers, and lifestyle businesses, online or over the phone. More than 3,000 businesses have registered with Shop Local, making the site a one-stop directory for Federal Way businesses. Many of our residents are sharing their favorite businesses on social media and leave reviews, so more neighbors know what they offer. For those of you watching on YouTube or Facebook Live, you could find more information out about Shop Local in the description in the video. Now, as we weather the COVID storm together, we must remember the pandemic is still serious. I encourage you all to stay masked up, maintain social distancing, wash your hands regularly, and get vaccinated when you can. If you have concerns about the vaccination, be sure to consult with your healthcare provider or contact King County Public Health to ensure the vaccination is right for you. Moving forward, let us keep an eye toward the future of Federal Way and the opportunities we are building right here at home. Later this year, Federal Way will welcome the expansion of DaVita Integrated Kidney Care, the country's largest kidney care provider. DaVita is adding hundreds of good-paying jobs to our city, and soon will become the largest private employer in the city of Federal Way. It's exciting. It's exciting as this development is as it is. It almost didn't happen. There's another story. Several years ago, I met with representatives from DaVita and was briefed on their desire to expand their operations locally. Holding that development up was the concern of literally an imaginary line. Now, a city's plan for future development, often roads that do not currently exist are planned for. In this case, the yet-to-be engineered or even financed 324th City Center Access Project saw a potential road come far too close to DaVita's planned development. While the City Center Access Project is important for our future development, there was no way we could let a road that isn't even financed and that doesn't exist at this point cost our community hundreds of well-paying jobs. Working with our Public Works and Economic Development Department, and on my recommendation, the Federal Way City Council voted overwhelmingly to move that imaginary line over just a little bit to allow DaVita to move forward with their plans. Recruiting businesses to Federal Way never stops, and we are fortunate to have an outstanding economic development director in Tim Johnson. Working with Tim, we are in the processes of bringing Smith Brothers Dairy to Federal Way, and Popeye Kenworth is building a new facility in town. All City Fence, a regional fencing company, is opening their third location right here. And earlier this month, we welcomed the return of Old Navy to Federal Way. Skechers has a new facility. Azteca relocated across the street from their prior location due to the light rail construction, and Red Robin will open at their new facility in the Gateway Plaza very soon. When I became mayor, Federal Way was suffering from what the Federal Way Mirror described as a, quote, urban blight. One only needs to drive down Veterans Way now to see how our city is literally transforming right before our very eyes. With the investment in Town Square Park, we created a sense of center to build around. We built the Performing Arts and Event Center, which even during COVID shutdown, utilized a creative approach by holding 19 virtual concerts and events, hosted food trucks throughout the summer, and rented out the parking lot for 108 days for truck driver training. The PAC also served as a King County election site for over 1,400 voters. We built the town center steps, promoting connectivity and walkability between the PAC and the park. Later this year, we will dedicate a veterans monument and flagpole at the very top of those steps. Federal Way has a sizable veteran population, and we want to thank retired Army Major King County Councilman Pete Von Reichbauer and our local VFW for their work on this project, and to Pete for the funding for the flagpole. I have to tell you, whenever I leave Federal Way, one of the first things I notice is how different the roads are from our city. Sometimes it feels like I'm off-roading. Since our incorporation 31 years ago, next week, our city councils have made the wise decision to invest in our roads. We have a dedicated line of funding for our overlay program, and thanks to our renegotiated contract with Waste Management, we have added $1.5 million per year in overlay for neighborhood roads impacted disproportionately by garbage truck damage. We have an outstanding public works department led by Director E.J. Walsh. His crew, running around the clock, did a marvelous job keeping our roads clear with our recent winter weather. It is precisely that investment in our roads that led me to lead the charge to bring light rail down I-5 rather than destroying the almost $112 million of investment over 18 years on Pacific Highway. The Link Light Rail Federal Way extension is now 25% complete and will begin serving our downtown, our city, in just 3 short years. Combined with the investments we have made with the Town Center project, light rail will bring nearly unlimited potential for new business, job growth, and investment in our community. Helping us manage that growth is our Community Development Department led by Director Brian Davis. We cannot open a new business or build a new home without community development processing applications. Our dedicated staff processed more than 13,000 applications last year. CD has been busy streamlining the Community Development Block Grant Program to implement grant-making evaluation with an equity lens. The city is also currently drafting a housing action plan that will provide a pathway for both affordable and market rate housing options. Through our shopping cart recovery program, community development has recovered over 2,000 abandoned carts in the last year, cleaning up our city and saving local businesses money on replacement costs. We have 2 full-time graffiti technicians ensuring graffiti, where discovered, is covered and cleaned within 24 hours. These quality of life issues are overlooked by some cities, but not in Federal Way. Keeping the city clean, safe, and functioning is a critical function of local government. I am delighted we have implemented the Eyes on Federal Way application. Our new app lets us see, click, and fix problem areas around town. We're now able to identify and track and prioritize projects to enhance our city. CD's work is a critical component in making the vision of our administration a reality. Growth as a community is often defined in terms of economic development, but true growth comes from within. In his famous letter from the Birmingham jail, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. said, quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." I find these words to perfectly define the moment our country is facing. Federal Way, like communities in every corner of the United States, were shocked and horrified by what we saw over the summer with the murder of George Floyd. Vascular restraints should not be used on anyone, and our police department has discontinued this practice. As we look for ways to ensure the public remains safe, while at the same time understanding the need for enhanced training for police officers, we must recognize that defunding the police is not the right solution for Federal Way. That does not mean there should not be reform. There must be reform. There has been a debate in our community for several years about whether or not to deploy body cameras for our police officers. It's centered around cost, and it's just been a debate in our community. That debate is over. We fully embrace the transparency and accountability body cameras provide. The cost of implementing the body camera program is over $1.3 million, just to start it. But with funding for a pilot program now requested from the state, as well as a request to the federal Justice Now program, I am confident we'll be able to have officers trained and equipped in the very near future. It's a priority for us. We are closely monitoring police reform bills through the legislature, and which is led by our police chief, Andy Wong. The Federal Way Police Department is working to recruit and develop a more diverse police force. As these reforms are ongoing, keeping the public safe remains the #1 priority of my administration, and we will do all we can to ensure our city remains safe. That includes adding 3 officers this year to ensure we do not experience the spike in crime we've seen in other areas of our region. Now, while it's vitally important that we monitor crime trends and a statistic is cold comfort to someone who's been impacted by crime. To the men and women of the Federal Way Police Department, we all know that you do not have an easy job, but serving something greater than oneself is a noble calling. Thank you for your dedicated service to the people of our community. As we strive to become a more just and equitable community, we are taking the necessary steps to review our practices by hiring the city's first diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator. To ensure full transparency and community involvement in the selection process and in my direction, we've enlisted the help of a diverse panel of community members, diversity commission members, former elected officials, current staff, and council members, and representatives from other agencies to interview the applicant for this important post. A city cannot function without information technology, and I'm proud of our IT department led by Director Thomas Fitchner, who helped us bring this event live today with his team. Our IT team responded quickly to the emergence of COVID-19 and tirelessly adapted our city to the demands of the pandemic. While the front doors may have closed, the work of our city has continued, even accelerated, as we transitioned our workforce to their remote work locations. Federal Way is leaning forward into the future and doing our part to ensure we are good stewards of the environment. We're exploring federal grants to begin converting to an electrical fleet of vehicles. And we have recently completed the conversion to LED streetlights, which will save the city an amazing $350,000 per year. We continue to work with our regional partners regarding the health and safety of our residents who are negatively affected by aircraft noise and emissions. and this remains a high priority for my administration. We will continue to advocate and support meaningful local, state, and federal initiatives with our elected delegations. At my direction, we've joined our neighboring 5 airport cities in the continuing studies with the UW on the effect of ultrafine particles on our homes, schools, and businesses. I thank our energetic and knowledgeable residents, including Dave Berger and Chris Hall, among many others, for their continuing efforts to assist us with this advocacy set forth in our neighbor-inspired Mayor's Quiet and Healthy Skies Task Force. One of the truly great amenities Federal Way has to offer is our outstanding park system. The Parks Department, led by Director John Hutton, have really stepped up for our community during this COVID-19 shutdown, offering remote learning and virtual group exercise classes. Our community center has partnered with CHI Franciscan and will soon be used as a high-volume vaccination site for the distribution of the COVID-19 vaccination. President Franklin Roosevelt once said, quote, "Human kindness has never weakened the stamina or softened the fiber of free people." We must do everything we can in government to help those in need get out of the desperate experience of homelessness. As mayor, I instituted the Homeless Encampment Services Initiative to help our neighbors in need get out of the dangerous homeless encampments and into services. Several years ago, we assisted in helping to open the day center, coordinating with Catholic Community Services, I'll refer to as CCS, to help get our homeless neighbors into the services they need to rehabilitate their lives. We are doing what we can to help people get into housing by initiating a diversion program with CCS to help people experiencing homelessness pay first and last month's rent. We have allocated $334,000 in federal funds to pay for overnight staffing with Reach Out and for COVID modifications of the day center. Federal Way is partnering with King County to work toward a permanent shelter. As a city of 100,000 people, this is a necessity. We will administer yet another $572,000 this year for rental assistance for those still impacted by COVID. And just 2 weeks ago, for the first time in our city's history, I authorized the use of the Federal Way Community Center as an emergency cold weather overnight shelter as a life-saving measure during the brutal freezing weather. While every success may not have generated headlines, they represent the quiet competency of good government. As I began tonight's address, I spoke to you about the character of our community. I could tell you the character and strength of our community, of our city, does not just come from achievements in government alone. It comes from the doctors, nurses, first responders, risking their safety while caring for our neighbors who have contracted COVID-19. It comes from the teacher, creatively inspiring our scholars, doing their level best to keep kids engaged in the most challenging circumstances of their young lives. Our strength comes from the community activist who bravely stands for change and advocates for a more fair, just, and equitable society. We see our strength in the business owner who sacrifices their life savings to keep their businesses open so their employees can still provide for their families. Our strength comes from you, the people we have the honor of serving. With an eye toward our future and appreciation of where we're going together, friends and neighbors, I can report to you tonight, the state of our city is strong. Thank you for joining me this evening. Please stay safe.